Hello, everyone. How are we doing today?
What's going on, Steven?
Today we got a great episode planned. We have Dom Boon from Liberty Latin America. He's the Vice President of Talent and Organizational Development. But more importantly, Dom is a friend and he's been a business partner in a variety of different capacities over the last few years. And so I'm thrilled to have him on the show today. Welcome, Dom.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be here.
So we like to start the show with good news stories, and I am just going to kick it off rather than fumble through and I'm a little concerned that Daniel may try to steal mine because I shared mine a little earlier with him. But my good news is that in Texas, it is finally starting to cool down a little bit. We literally, there's like, 2, 3 months of intense, like summer, 100-degree weather. It feels like every single day. And it's finally starting to cool off a little bit. Thank goodness for all the ACL people out there weekend too. That's my good news.
Cool.
How about you, Don? I'll pick on you.
Look, I mean, I'm in Miami. The weather is also starting just about to turn the corner and cooling off a little bit less humidity. My good news story, though, is looking forward to December. And with travel restrictions having been lifted, I'm finally planning a trip back to UK to see my family and friends. So I haven't seen my parents in 2 years.
Wow.
So it's going to be a special reunion when we get back there with my wife and two daughters in December. So that's my good news story. Just in the process of booking the flights now.
That's awesome.
That's really exciting. So I'm struggling to think of good news, but Steven gave me a good idea. So I'm getting married in March, and
that's good news in itself.
That's good news. Congratulations.
Yeah. But I've just had to go through the process of getting all of the save the dates like put together and sent out. And that was way more involved of a process than I thought it was going to be. So the good news is that we're past that. We got all the invites sent out, and we're like 85% the way there on all the planning. So a little bit less stress going forward, hopefully.
Daniel, in the UK, we call that wedmin. It's like admin, but it's wedding. So it's wedmin.
There's a lot of wedmin that's associated with getting married.
That's true.
So much Wedman, and to complicate matters even more, the Huerta family is extremely large. It's a huge family, so even determining who you guys were gonna, what the Huerta allotment was for the wedding, I bet that in itself was a nightmare because it's the big family. But we're not here we could spend a whole episode just talking about how complicated and large our family is. Today, we want to talk about you, Dom, and the first segment of the show really is you sharing your journey, and because we know each other, I know that you have a particularly interesting journey. You've been at a lot of great organizations, you've done a lot of great things, and so I thought it'd be great for you to share that with our audience. Tell us a little bit about your story and journey through HR.
Great, sure. Well, I'll try to. I'm a fan of the show, and I've listened to some of the back catalogue, and some of your guests do this so succinctly and professionally. I hope I can do something similar. I certainly had quite a varied career to start with, and I moved around a few different companies. But I guess at the heart of my career has been people, culture, leadership, behavior, change management. I grew up moving around the world because my father worked in different countries. So I always had this kind of fascination with people and how they get on with each other. And then when I left university, I taught English as a foreign language down in Buenos Aires, and just an incredible place to be in the late 90s, and really enjoyed the training aspect of that. And then somehow when I went back to London in the UK, I found myself on a fast track management scheme for a company called Cable and Wireless on the HR side of things. So I saw a kind of relation between the training experience I had and HR. And I just was working around some amazing people who used to stretch me and challenge me and coach me. I was working on HR transformation, EHR projects, reward, getting some early experience of business partnering. So I had a great foundation with that company.
Oh no.
I think this is a first. We
I
got
think
to,
so. As I hear the thunder booming outside,
yeah,
setting a very ominous tone.
it's been so humid today. It's just felt like the rain was wanting to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a, do you, what, would it be better to start over or to, oh,
Hello.
here we are.
Well,
We're
looks like I
back.
got cut off there.
Yeah, we lost you, and I was about to ask Daniel what would be, this has never happened before, at least not like that. So what do we do, Daniel? Do we just
Sorry about
start,
that, guys. Yeah.
No,
do we
actually,
just start
we've
back?
done worse. We one time made it like 15-20 minutes into an episode and realized that we didn't click record. So this is nothing compared to that.
Oh,
Uh,
it's gotta be on your side, Dom, because there was
Uh,
you were the original like
yeah.
podcast attempt, and similarly, it went like 10 minutes with no voice, and then this suddenly the voice started just came on.
Well, yeah. Well, it looked like it was me that dropped out, wasn't it? So sorry about that. Let's we can always switch to a cell phone if necessary, but let's try again with this
Yeah, I
change.
think
Sorry about
why
that.
don't should we start, Daniel, with just like the background, like just the journey?
well,
Could
so
we
I think I maybe start where you said you went back to London and you found yourself on a fast track to management at Cable and Wireless.
like literally start with I found myself in a fast track at Cable and Wireless?
Yeah, yeah. And then I can
Okay,
just edit out everything that happened, you know, from the moment he paused until now
perfect,
and a little bit
perfect.
before that.
Okay. So at Cable and Wireless, I had some amazing opportunities. I was working with a fantastically professional HR team who used to stretch me and challenge me and coach me. I was doing HR transformation projects. I did a 6 month period of time in the reward team. I did some early HR business partnering and just got really great start to my career from learning from other people who were far more experienced than me. And then I moved on to another telecoms operator called Orange, which is owned by the France Telecom Group, international group with businesses all across Europe and Africa. And after a few years there, I got a chance to go and work down in Madrid. We bought the third largest operator in Spain, and I was in charge of the HR change management for that project. So, you know, wonderful opportunity to be in Spain, practice my Spanish skills and get to know the culture down there. But the change management and project management side of things really interested me. So when I came back to London, I spoke to some of the consulting firms and I ended up at Deloitte. So it was good to have a period of time outside of HR, still working on HR topics as a consultant. I was doing M&A work, I was doing customer experience transformation in different sectors, public sector, financial services, as well as telecoms. Yeah, amazing few years of accelerated development with Deloitte. Amazing caliber of people you work with. You know, you're working with all the big companies, finding out what good practice really looks like. So then I had an opportunity to join Virgin, Richard Branson's group, and I thought, you know, do I want to go back into HR or do I want to stay in consulting? But the attraction of a brand like Virgin was just too much.
Hard to pass that up.
Yeah, so I ditched the suit, got the jeans on, and went for several interviews with Virgin Active, and eventually got the job there, where I was the UK HR director for Virgin Active. I think I was still quite young at that stage to have a a responsible job like that, or at least it felt that way. We had 4,500 employees. We acquired another gym group, but most of all, the Richard Branson touch, the culture, this kind of innovative, maverick, people first culture was just really, really inspiring. So I had the opportunity then to move on to the telecoms sector and within Richard Branson's group, so a company called Virgin Media, which is the main cable provider in the UK. And yeah, I had 4 fantastic years there, doing a variety of HR things, but still with the Branson-esque culture and everything that we did. And then I was able to do an internal transfer from Virgin Media's European parent company out to Miami. So moving from Liberty Global into Liberty Latin America, where I've been for 4 years now. And it's been an amazing experience to be out in this region, working in Latin America and the Caribbean, but to be based in such an amazing city like Miami. And that's, I think, brings me up to present day.
So I had no idea that you started off teaching English as a foreign language in Buenos Aires. And I'm seeing a common theme here. I feel like you have some, ties to the Latin American culture. Also, we're out in Spain, so I imagine your Spanish is pretty good.
Bueno, espero que sí.
Way better than mine.
I was gonna say, be careful, Daniel, because Dom is like fluent. His Spanish is amazing. So be careful, because I don't know if we're ready to have a Spanish version of the Modern People Leader yet. So,
well, Spanish is useful to have in Miami. It's it's I don't know if it's the first language or the second language, but it's certainly useful.
And I guess, Dom, to focus on your journey just a little bit, you're one of those guys that it just sounds so natural, like these things just happen. And if I'm looking at your CV, your resume, or your LinkedIn, it it's like, how did you do that? Like, how did you get all these amazing brands on your resume? And so what was the looking back, what do you think helped or led you through this journey? What were was it your ability to see opportunities? Was it that you found a niche in telecoms? Like, what was it, do you think, that really helped you through that journey progress?
That's a great question. I haven't sort of dissected it in great detail. I mean, I think there's an element of luck there to have been in the right place at the right time. I mean, the opportunity to go and work in Spain came about because the chief people officer at Orange heard me speaking Spanish to our Colombian cleaners. So, suddenly he says, well, you speak Spanish well, do you want to go and run this project for us? So, being in the right place at the right time was useful. I guess I've also been hungry to learn. I'm really interested and fascinated by new environments and how the same problem might be tackled in different ways in different companies. And then the third factor probably is networking. So, I try to keep in touch with people I've worked with. I've got strong networks going back to 20 years, to when I first started. And I try to keep that network healthy and keep in touch with people.
We're going to have a master class in the future, Daniel, around networking. And because there's a lot of very successful guests that we've had on this show that, have attributed networking to being a key part. And the same holds true for me. Networking certainly has been a big part of my career. Well, let's talk about Liberty Latin America. Liberty Latin America is one of those brands that our audience probably hasn't heard of, or they don't realize that they've heard of Liberty Latin America. But if you've spent any time in the Caribbean, in Latin America, you've definitely seen the brand in the markets. So tell us a little bit about your core business, what you do. Shed a little more light on the day-to-day at Liberty Latin America.
Sure, yeah. So we're one of the largest cable operators in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're offering broadband, residential and B2B services. We offer cable TV, cell phone service as well. And we even have a subsea cable network carrying data under the ocean, between the different geographies we operate in. We've got just under 12,000 employees, and yeah, we operate in 30 countries if you consider both the B2C and B2B operations. So we've been on the NASDAQ since January 2018. So we actually separated from our European company. And it's been an amazing journey, I have to say. So I really love working here and having been part of the project from the start. Maybe to share a couple of reasons why I like working here. I mean, the people are amazing. I love the markets we operate in. Before COVID, I would love to go to one of the Caribbean islands or Latin American country and go and visit the frontline operations and see the engineers connecting broadband. Amazing experience. The second reason is what we do. So, we're providing connectivity, which is really important. And in the pandemic, it's been incredibly important. We're connecting schools, governments, hospitals, and of course, with people working or studying from home and in various lockdowns, that connectivity has been vital. And then finally, I think we've been doing some really progressive things and brave things in HR. Certainly under the leadership of Kerry Scott, our Chief People Officer, we've got these cultural carriers that we've delivered, things like taking the ratings out of performance management. We've been doing a whole load of work around unlimited vacation. We offered enhanced parental leave, which just absolutely was unheard of in some of the markets we operate in. And then most recently, a lot more work on equality, diversity, and inclusion, and promoting and celebrating pride. So I'm really, really proud of some of the progress things that we've been able to do.
Yeah, I love it. I spend a lot of time in Costa Rica, and every time I'm there, I'm like, Liberty Latin America. And so it's cool once you know the brands, in the markets, you can't not see them. And so you mentioned pandemic twice, and I wanted to spend a little time talking about the nature of your business is it's geographically sprawling, 30 markets. That's a lot of countries. And those are with different traditions, different cultures, different very, very diverse, different set of diversity challenges and issues, and different socioeconomic backgrounds as well. So I can imagine that it was challenging during the pandemic to navigate all those things. Can you share a little bit about what it was like, what it's been like over the last 18 months? Dealing with challenges that COVID and the pandemic brought.
Yeah, I mean, maybe starting with the business, which is where I always like to start. Then we set up a strategic task force to look at the scenarios. So what's the worst case scenario that could happen here for our business, and what's the less serious scenarios, and I did a lot of work on that. Then we worked with governments as well, because we needed to get our frontline staff out into the community to make sure we're keeping people connected. And also a lot of customers found it difficult to afford to pay their bills for their services with us, and it's essential that people stay connected at this time. So we've been working a lot on that. But I guess from a people and culture perspective, we kind of created and emphasized our sense of purpose during this time. The first sense of purpose was around keeping our communities connected, and the second one was looking after our people. And on that second one, we decided fairly early on that we didn't need to lose anyone, that we wouldn't have to make layoffs, which was an amazing statement, and immediately brought the sense of security and stability for our workforce. And then we enabled working from home like many businesses did very, very quickly. We encouraged people to take time off. We really focused on well-being. Unfortunately, we've lost some employees very sadly, as other companies have as well, and we've tried to do our best to support employees as we've gone through that. But you're right. I mean, every market we operate in is in a different state of the pandemics. The vaccine is readily available, and most, of our employees have been vaccinated, and then other markets the vaccine is not as available. So it's really hard for those employees when they're still concerned for their own well-being.
Yeah, certainly, the risks, are, it's like you're dealing with various risk levels throughout all those countries. I can imagine that that being a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So, we're talking about the pandemic and all of the, uncertainty over the past 18, 19 months. Feels like it's been much longer. But, one thing that keeps coming up time and time again is the topic of managers and how having a good or bad manager can make or break the employee experience, especially, during times like these, and how, the manager of the future will almost need to have a different set of skills than the manager of the past. So we're really excited to dig into today's topic. I know Liberty Latin America has been doing some really exciting research on managers. So before we dive in, could you just share a little bit about the work that your team has been doing and how that work came about?
Yeah, it started a few years ago before the pandemic, actually, Daniel. So I was really influenced by the famous Laszlo Bock book on work rules, where he talks about upward management feedback, where this concept of going and asking the employees what they think of their managers. So I thought, hey, this would be really cool to do, really interesting. Where do I get hold of the data? And then I realized, actually, we have that data already. We ask questions on that every year in our engagement survey. So then it was a question of looking at how we could get hold of that data and analyze it and do a deep dive on it to understand it better. So we've been doing that for a few years, but this year is the first year that we've done it all across Liberty Latin America. So across our 12,000 employees, we really looked at exactly what it was that made the best managers so effective in leading their people through the change. We have 5 questions in the engagement survey relating to the employee and their relationship with their manager. So we effectively gave every people manager an average score across those 5 questions, and then we ranked them. So all Liberty Latin American managers were ranked based on that average. Then we looked at the demographics, particularly around the top 10% of managers. So yeah, that's a kind of outline, Daniel, of what we did.
That is really cool. I'm curious, were there any interesting findings that came out of this research?
Lots of interesting findings, and maybe some specific things relating to the pandemic as well. We didn't find a big difference between male and female managers, which was slightly different to previous research. We did find that female managers were far better at giving feedback than male managers, which was interesting. And then the second sort of really fascinating point was that our managers with lower tenure, the managers that were newer to the organization, actually had better scores from their employees on their management style as well. And again, that was different to what we'd found in previous surveys. So I don't really understand why that is. Our hypothesis would be that just the demands of what employees need from their managers during the pandemic has completely shifted, and maybe more experienced managers are less aware of that or less able to adapt, possibly. But we need to dig into that a bit further.
Yeah, that was my as I was just listening to you talk, Dom, that's what I was thinking. It's like, okay, if I have a relationship with an existing manager that had norms and had, we had a way of interacting and working together, and that gets disrupted, and you can now see like how I operate as your manager, flailing about in this kind of Zoom remote working way. I could see how that would have a negative impact on scores. Whereas if we just started working together and we only knew each other through these Zoom interactions, I could see how that would have a different impact on scores. So that's really, really interesting.
So you mentioned the 5 questions that you were using in the employee engagement survey about managers. You may have said this, I might have missed it, but what were some of those questions?
The first one was around understanding the personal situation, so the manager being supportive of their employee. Second one was on recognizing efforts and results. The third one was empowerment and motivation. The fourth one was around psychological safety, so feeling comfortable to speak up and disagree with the manager if the employee had a different point of view. And then the fifth and final one was they regularly get does the manager regularly give the employee feedback through our agile performance development system. So yeah, 5 sort of rounded questions, I think.
Excellent. Well, so you get your data set, you have the ranking in place. What do you do with your data? What did y'all do with the data once you had the ranking of all the managers?
Well, the first thing we did was the top 10% of managers was sent an email to say, hey, well done, you're doing something right here. Your employees think that you're fantastic. And the top 10% of managers, were obviously thrilled to bits to get that kind of communication and recognition. Then we got that top 10% and we interviewed some of them. So did some deep dive interviews with them, trying to understand some of their habits and techniques. And then we did a second survey of the employees of the top 10% of managers. And yeah, we've found some really interesting habits that we think differentiate the top 10% of people managers from everyone else. So I can go through those if you want.
Yeah, if you're able to share those, I would love to hear what those are.
Yeah, sure. So we call these the 8 new habits of the top people managers in Liberty Latin America. The first one is that they check in every day with their employees. So whether it's a WhatsApp message or a Microsoft Teams message or a call or a meeting, they're checking in every day with their employees. The second one is mixing personal and professional in the one-on-one meetings. So not just talking about business objectives, but allowing some time to discuss family situation or how the weekend was. A lot more personal element than before the pandemic. The third one was around regularly resetting priorities. So I'm sure everyone found in 2020, especially, annual objectives became irrelevant fairly quickly once the pandemic had begun. So, the manager sort of resetting priorities, finding out what people are spending time on and giving some guidance on that was important. The fourth one was holding team social activities online. So that could be a virtual lunch, celebrating achievements. It could be things like, a happy hour with the team. But equally, sometimes it was less structured than that. And it was just, let's just forget the agenda for 15 minutes and talk about something that's not connected with work. So, it was just a bit more focus on the social side of things. The fourth one was sharing experience and learning. So employees really appreciated it when managers could share some of the lessons they'd learned from their career or when they'd come across a similar situation. And could use that as a coaching point with their teams. And then the sixth one is about learning. So the best managers are promoting internal learning courses we have, or sharing a link to a video or an article that they'd found useful and they thought their team would benefit from. So those are the 6 core habits we found. And then we identified 2 super habits, as we call them. And we call them super habits because we think they have a disproportionate impact on the engagement of people in the teams. So the 2 super habits were transparent communication. So that is managers sharing with their employees what's happening in their personal life, what happened at the weekend, how their family's health is. Also answering questions with "we don't know yet" when employees are asking what's going to happen in the future, what's the policy going to be on returning to the office, etc. The best managers have been very transparent with their teams. And then the final one, the second super habit, we're calling being a career coach. So we found that the best people managers were spending time identifying internal opportunities for their team members to move into. They would then give them coaching on interview skills and even help them with their resume. So, many organizations, we find this problem of talent hoarding, where managers just don't want to release the best talent because they think their team performance will suffer. But the best managers were doing exactly the opposite. They were finding great opportunities for employees to move into and then coaching them to help them be successful in internal interview processes.
This is
Wow.
so
And
interesting.
go ahead, Daniel.
No, sorry. I couldn't help but think of, okay, so this is going to be a really weird comparison, but have y'all been watching Ted Lasso?
Of course.
Okay.
I know of it. I haven't watched it in detail yet. It's on my list of things to watch, Daniel.
Dom.
So I won't give away too much, but in the second season, there's one character who is resigning from her role to take on a better opportunity, and she's seeking advice from a coworker on how to basically have this conversation with her current boss, on basically letting her know that I'm leaving, but also that I'm really grateful. And the character that she's talking to, he's like, good mentors know that you're going to move on, but great mentors like expect you to move on, or something like that. So when I see being a career coach, that's what comes to mind. But also, I won't get too deep into Ted Lasso, but that character has a really, deep relationship with her boss. They share a lot of vulnerable moments. So I don't know why I was thinking about that. That was the first thing that came to mind. The second thing that came to mind, I'm so curious, and not to like go too negative, but I'm curious, is there like an inverse, learning, like habits to avoid? Was there anything interesting in the data where some of the lower performing managers all did like the same thing, or there was one habit that they all had? I'm just so curious if there's anything there.
I've been listening to your back catalogue, and halfway through every podcast, there's always the deep and meaningful philosophical question from Daniel, and we've arrived at that moment. So I was kind of ready for this. But yeah, that's a great question. So it is inverse. You're right. So it's the opposite. We did a very quick pulse survey in June or July in 2020. So just as we were starting to understand the pandemic, and we found that employees who were unsatisfied or very dissatisfied with the support they got from their manager had disproportionately low engagement scores. So they had ENPS scores of minus 50. So it's that level of personal support where the manager is continuing to give employees work as if the pandemic isn't happening, not taking account of personal circumstances, not appreciating that working from home with children doing homeschooling, or dogs making noise, or even people not having much space in their apartment at home, isn't a great work for being productive. So managers who weren't able to adapt and weren't able to acknowledge and support employees, their personal situation, that really isn't cool. That really drives disengagement.
And I'm curious, Dom, so now you have the 8 habits of a successful, or of an effective manager, and you then from there you socialize that with obviously your HR leadership team. You're like, wow, we just have identified some amazing nuggets, some gold here that we need to do something with. What did you do with the data from there?
Well, we're still in the process of sharing the results, actually, Stephen. So we shared it with our executive team, which was a great opportunity, and I think being evidence-based seemed to go down well. We've been touring different functional and country leadership teams. This week we've been in Colombia and in the North Caribbean and the legal function. So there's a great deal of interest in this, and we're about to publish the full set of research on our intranet. Then we're going to go public externally. I think it might be useful for other companies to benefit from, hopefully. And also sometimes to communicate internally, you can do it through an external channel, and it's just as effective, or even more effective. So that's what we're doing. Then I think we're going to build some of our talent programs off the back of this. Certainly our performance management process, we're making some tweaks to that, and we're going to link it back to these 8 habits. And then our learning and development programs as we go into next year will definitely be around how we build these skills and habits in our managers. So we're halfway through that process, Stephen, but it gives us some evidence of what works with managers and some real tangible targets to aim for. So I think I'm confident it will be effective.
Yeah, and what I love about it is it's specific to your culture. We've talked about on this show how the most effective strategies, people strategies, are those that are really tailored to the organization. And that's not to say that you can't just, take the 5 dysfunctions of a team and apply it to your company and see success. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you can achieve even greater success by having a solution that is really, really tailored to the organization. And this, is all based on the voice of your employees specifically, right? And then your analysis, your ability to analyze, to cross-analyze, the data from multiple surveys, to boil that down. Then you conducted the focus groups. And so I think that's what's most exciting to me, because I hear so often like we're doing all these things, we're not seeing the results. How can we see better results? And I think this is just like a great real world example of how you can take a different approach, leverage some of the best practices that are being used out there, and in a way that will that get you to a better solution. And so to me, it's just really, really cool, the process that you guys have gone through. Have there been any aha moments or kind of surprises for you? Was there anything, particularly that caught you as something that you wouldn't have expected?
Well, I think the results were slightly different to previous analysis that we've done on this, particularly around the tenure of the managers, like I mentioned earlier. So that'll probably be the key one. What I think is important to your other point is that quite often HR functions sit in a room and say, our managers aren't good enough. Let's give them some training on this. Or they get a couple of bits of feedback from the business and everyone in my team needs presentation skills. So we roll out a presentation skills training program. But this is comprehensive research, evidence-based, and it covers the whole organization. So we can be much more confident that when we design our talent and learning and development programs that we're going to be hitting the right mark. So I mean that's been an aha moment, and actually seems to be resonating with people. So I'm really excited about that people are seeing that it's credible and believe in the results. So that's great.
Awesome. And as far as, embedding, if you had to pick one thing that you would focus on first, or you think is the most important thing to focus on from, the data that you got back, in terms of taking this and really integrating it into your talent management programs, what are you most excited about?
A human-centric style of leadership. I think that's how you could summarize our findings. So, previously managers were expected to manage the person that turned up to the workplace 9 to 5. Now it's been that way for, I don't know how many years, 50 plus years or so. Now that's not enough. Now the manager needs to have the right personal connection with their team, need to understand the family situation, the well-being, the mental health, the workload, the productivity, and as we get into returning to office phases, as many companies will be looking at now, how many days a week should the employee be in the office? How do we create some collaboration with the team, and how does each individual with a different local personal context play their part in that team? So I think, we're being forced into this much more human-centric style of leadership, which has got to be a good thing for everyone. So I think that's probably my main takeaway.
Yeah, it's so weird. You know, over the past 10, 15, 20 years, technology has advanced so much, but it feels like in the past couple of years, everything is moving more human centric, whether it's having a more human centric style of leadership or more human centric of doing sales or of doing marketing. So yeah, it's just interesting. We're getting more technologically advanced, but really the key ingredient is just being a little more human.
Well, yeah, I mean, remember the BBC guy that had his child come, or the children come in the back, a few years ago. Remember that went viral, and then at the start of this pandemic, people had their dogs or children suddenly arrive on camera, and they're embarrassed by it, or they're not sure how to react. But it's completely normal now, isn't it? So
Totally normal.
We've seen inside people's bedrooms and kitchens, and met people's kids, and it's much more human centric.
Yeah. I don't know why my mind went here, but I don't know if y'all have seen the video of it's like a lawyer, and he's on some Zoom call, and for whatever reason he has a cat filter applied, and he's like, I promise I'm not a cat. Have y'all seen that?
I have seen it. Yeah, he's in court, I think, isn't he? And he's
trying
to convince the judge that he's not a cat. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm going to send you the link of this BBC guy from a few years ago, because at the time it was a big thing, and now it's not big.
Now it's just
amazing
normal.
how things have changed.
Cool. Well, for every guest that we have at the end, we have sort of like a rapid fire style of questions, and it's 4 or 5 questions. Actually, it's 3. I lied. So, as a people leader, what are the 3 to 4 metrics that are the most important for you to look at on a daily or weekly basis?
I need to give you a smart ALEC, as we say in the UK, a smart answer to that. I mean, I would start with the business. It's always got to start with the business. What's the net ads we've had from our sales? What's the number of homes we've passed with our fiber network in the last quarter? What's the revenue looking like and the growth from the previous quarter? So, I mean, I always want my teams to start there. But then getting into the talent side of things, we're looking at percentage of female directors, time to hire and number of vacancies. LinkedIn followers is important because we're trying to grow the Liberty Latin America brand. And today we just reached 40,000. So we're super happy about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then on the learning and development side, we're still getting more sophisticated with that. We're looking at the number of people and the topics that we've trained out there. So yeah, a variety of different things.
That's a good list. We haven't heard a couple of those. I don't think we've ever heard number of female directors, and I don't think any of our guests have mentioned LinkedIn followers. So love it. So what's one thing that you'd love to learn from future guests that we have on? Is there anything that you've been, trying to crack the code on, or something that you've maybe been struggling with? And like, if somebody had the answer to this, I would want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an HR geek. I love to read external articles and things. And so I'm interested in Agile and how HR functions adopt the Agile methodology and Scrums, etc. So that's one area. And then the second area, not traditional HR stuff, but office layout. So what are we going to do with facilities? So if people aren't coming into the office 5 days a week, do they need an allocated desk? If they don't have an allocated desk, what do you do with that space? So yeah, I think it's time HR started looking at office and facilities.
My girlfriend just went back to her company's headquarters, which is in the Bay Area, and everything has changed, and it's all hoteling style, and you've got everything is card driven, and handless everything. I think that would be a really, really cool topic to have people share on as well.
Yeah.
Agreed. So last question for you, Dom. I'm sure you've worked with a ton of superstars over the years. Is there like, one really interesting person that you've either worked with or you've seen on LinkedIn that you think we should have on the show?
Wow. Well, lots of people I'd recommend, definitely. Maybe one to suggest for you would be Cleo Knowles. Cleo's based in Miami. She's the Chief People Officer for Virgin Hotels, and they're doing some really cool things with technology to help their employees give better customer service to their guests. So yeah, Virgin Hotels doing some cool stuff in HR. So speak to Cleo.
We will definitely reach out.
Awesome. Well, we are, I think, at the point where we are wrapping up, but I just want to, I usually don't do this, but I want to hopefully find time to bring you back, Dom, because there's a topic that you mentioned, and that is removing ratings from your performance management process. And I saw Daniel, we're over here asynchronously, like trying to keep up with the discussion, and I saw him add that to our notes. And so we may, if you're open to it, we would love to have you back to speak on that topic, because I think that would be a good one to drill into. So, but for today, I think that's a wrap. And thank you so much for
one word
joining
close,
us.
Stephen.
Oh, one
Come
word
on.
close.
Most fun part of the show.
Okay, my one word close is Spanish, because I need to practice more Spanish.
Muy bien, muy bien.
Me too.
Do you want me to go, Daniel?
Sure. Yeah, you go next.
I'll go human centric. I don't know if that's
Human-centric.
one word, but that's what I'll go.
No, that's perfect.
That's works.
I was actually going to say that. How about habits?
Habits.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
Nice.
good.
Well,
Very good.
with that, I think we're officially at the end. Anything else, Daniel?
No. I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Don, for joining us. It's been a blast, and like I said, hopefully we can have you back sometime.
I'd love to come back. I really enjoyed the conversation. So thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the show. I'm a fan of the music to the show. You got to use that music more. It's cool.
I'm glad to hear that.
Good.
Great. Well, have a great one, guys.
Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.